to what end and what their goal is? To me, it seems quite obvious. It is to ultimately erect a one-world government.
The actors out there, because they get fluid, and next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from, so maintain your man card, no matter what.
On the Temple Mount, in which the beast can place his image and declare himself to be God.
A federal judge has given the Trump administration until 11:59 p.m. tonight to bring a Maryland man back to the United States after mistakenly deporting him. Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been imprisoned in El Salvador since last month, despite a court ruling protecting him from deportation.
After mistakenly deporting him, Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been imprisoned in El Salvador since last month, despite a court ruling protecting him from deportation.
Let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, so what happens if Abrego Garcia is not returned to the United States based on what the judge has ordered?
Well, we'll have to see, Vlad, but as of right now, there's no indication from the White House or the Justice Department that they're planning on returning Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States. In court filings over the weekend, the government said that they had no way to bring him back because he is in that CCOT, that maximum security prison in El Salvador. However, we do know from other court cases there have been at least 8 or 9 people who have been brought back from Salvadoran custody. The United States government has also said that these people are no longer in American custody. They're in Salvadoran custody, despite the fact that, according to court documents and public record, we know that there's some kind of deal involving financial payment from the United States to the Salvadoran government to hold these people there.
We know that there's some kind of deal involving financial payment from the United States to the Salvadoran government to hold these people there.
We also know that the Department of Justice has doubled down on their argument firing, or I should say, putting a Department of Justice attorney on administrative leave who argued this case on Friday in front of a district court in Maryland. This attorney sided and at least was sympathetic with the fact that this deportation should not have happened. He said that the facts of the case are true. He should have never been brought to El Salvador. And because of that, and basically punting in court, saying that the attorneys representing Mr. Abrego Garcia are right, that the deportation of him to El Salvador was wholly unlawful. So certainly more to come today. We'll see whether there's some kind of ruling in an appeals court. The Department of Justice has asked a Fourth Circuit appeals court to either hear an argument or fully block this judge's order.
And as you indicated, CBS News is learning about another man who was taken to an El Salvadoran prison in the middle of seeking U.S. asylum. What do you know about him?
This was another man who was taken on a series of flights on March 15th. The same series of flights that Mr. Abrego Garcia was taken, the same series of flights that are at the center of this Venezuelan migrant case in front of Judge Boasberg here in D.C., where he ordered these planes to be turned around. It's a man named André Hernandez Romero, who is a gay makeup artist who came to the United States to seek asylum from potential persecution because of his sexual identity. He came here and actually had some initial immigration proceedings in which an immigration court said that they believed that there were reasons that he should be fearful of his safety if he were to have remained there in Venezuela. He was part of that, and the government claimed in court filings that because of tattoos of a crown and other things in his social media portfolio, that they believed he was a gang member. There's no evidence of that.
That they believed he was a gang member. There's no evidence of that.
Good question. I don't know who's doing it. I really don't. It's not Bill Gates. It's not even Klaus Schwab, right? They're not the ones calling the shots, because they're the idiots that hang their face in the camera and advocate for all of this nonsense and this totalitarian crap. So it's not them. But who it is, I really don't know. I have no idea. And I usually refer to them, for the lack of a better word, as the globalitarian misanthropists, right? So there is a group of people, I have no idea who they are, but they are the ones calling the shots. And our elected governments are mere puppets. They are just, pretty much implementing whatever they come up with. To what end and what their goal is? To me, it seems quite obvious. It is to ultimately erect a one-world government.
Seems quite obvious. It is to ultimately erect a one-world government.
Another bombshell, tariff bombshell, hit the market this morning. Thursday, stocks had their worst day since the pandemic lockdown in March 2020. Overnight, prices fell a little bit more, and then, at around 6 a.m. Eastern, Beijing announced its response to the tariffs that President Trump had imposed on them. China will put a 34% hit on all products coming from America. The market tumbled again.
Financial turmoil after news of President Trump's tariffs. U.S. markets took a nosedive Thursday, but aboard Air Force One, the president's optimism sky high.
We have tariffs, they've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Framing the taxes on imported goods as a bargaining chip.
The president's trade policy is going to do a lot of economic damage.
I'm just hearing in my ear the Dow is down more than 1,700 points. That would be the highest level of drop. The biggest drop since these tariffs were announced, now down 1,713, 14, 22, 25. I'm going to stop looking at that right now. Let me ask you about this, Congressman, and drive this home for people. A guy named Dan Ives, he's an analyst for Wedbush Securities, released a post calling this economic Armageddon.
Released a post calling this economic Armageddon.
There's a short life in
why do you think that is? What the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take drugs. You're going through so much shit to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space, and so eventually you're going to go too far. Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through.
You ever been to one of Diddy parties? Yeah, I've been in attendance. Hey, what the fuck you smirking for?
I ain't seen that.
I said I've been in attendance. I have been in attendance.
We never been. We just asked.
Yeah, I had fun. Yeah, I mean, it was a party. I wasn't at one of them parties.
We ain't say that about the party.
I've been in attendance. Yeah, I went. Yeah. Well, I don't know which party. The party I went to, it was girls turned up. You know what I'm saying? The regular. You know what I mean? Parties. What party? That's crazy.
What are your views on the World Economic Forum? Well, I'm not a young global leader of tomorrow. I've never been to one of their events, and I look at Pierre Poilievre saying that he doesn't intend to go to their events and doesn't intend to have his ministers involved in them either. And I take the same view. But why? You're still not explaining what your views are on the World Economic Forum. Like, what do you find distasteful about it? I guess I find it distasteful when billionaires brag about how much control they have over political leaders, as the head of that organization has. And I think that is offensive. The people who should be directing government are the people who vote for them. And the people who vote for me and for my colleagues are people who live in Alberta and who are affected by our decisions. And so, quite frankly, until that organization stops bragging about how much control they have over political leaders, I have no interest in being involved with them. My focus is here in Alberta, solving problems for Albertans with the mandate from Alberta.
And yet what's even worse is he said, out of this crushing empire would come a fifth empire, that it would be different from any other kingdom.
Economic Armageddon, and here's what he wrote. 50% China tariffs, 23% Taiwan tariffs would essentially cause a shutoff valve from U.S. tech landscape, and in the process cause every electronic to go up 40 or 50% for consumers. iPhones in the U.S., made in the U.S., would cost $3,500 compared to $1,000 now. The stock market, as we know, is not the economy, but if prices go up anywhere near that amount, can the Republicans message their way out of this?
No, they can't. This is simply a massive tax increase by any measure. The tariff is a tax. And what did we not learn from Smoot-Hawley of 1930? These tariffs are going to reduce imports. There's no question about that. But it will also lead to a contraction of the economy. During the Great Depression, you know what? We ran trade surpluses, but did anybody care when we had 20% unemployment? No, they didn't. It was a mistake. And everybody acknowledges it. So why are we doing it again?
They say, why not enjoy where we are?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the example from COVID is really instructive. During COVID, we were reliant on China for, sort of for medical equipment, for protective gear, for medical workers, for things like face masks and the pharmaceutical supply chain that fed into the vaccines that we produced. All of that supply chain was reliant in one way or another on China, and that was an emergency. And if China had been more hostile at that point, we wouldn't have had any of it, right? And now imagine a real conflict with China develops and that supply chain goes away. You need to be able to be sure from a security perspective that things that are absolutely critical to the functioning of the economy in an emergency can be produced.
The president made one of the dumbest decisions in history as Trump allies work to calm concerns.
He's asking for and needs this space to flex America's muscle as the largest consuming nation in the world.
Asking for time.
The old antiquated system of paper documents is being dismantled and replaced with artificial intelligence, and millions of MAGA fans are celebrating this without even considering the replacement, which will be digital. Blockchain technology, which appeared mysteriously in the Bitcoin white paper, is well suited for tagging and tracing every living person on the planet and every transaction we make. In the current system, a birth certificate of title is registered for every child born. This has provided a paper record with minimal information. But with biometric data, the new system is capable of assigning a digital ID to every living man, woman, and child born. Locked into the blockchain from day one, every person's carbon footprint can be monitored, their compliance measured, and their overall value to the system can be calculated in real time. Blockchain is an immutable, time-stamped record of every interaction and exchange. And it's not just individuals who will have a digital ID. Every business, every product, and everything we interact with will have a digital ID. This is called tokenization, and it's happening right now. From the perspective of control, it is the most effective method of controlling human behavior that the world has ever known. And while many argue that the blockchain is not capable of doing all this, the problem has already been solved. You can't shut your iPhone off. Oh, I know. It's always listening. It's always pinging towers. It's always pinging Wi-Fi, building a digital breadcrumb trail where you go and what you do.
It's always listening. It's always pinging towers. It's always pinging Wi-Fi, building a digital breadcrumb trail where you go and what you do.
When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things. When you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
It's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
Huh? They got Odell Beckham and Drewski in the same lawsuit.
Odell, he losing.
Drewski been taking booty. Listen, you ain't look on the internet. You gonna see Drewski got put on by two people. One was P. Diddy. The other is that white boy that just did that deal. He just did that deal with not Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon they been for kids. The other one, what's that boy name? He give away all that money. Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast. Yeah, and Mr. Beast, you know, he put Kaya on. He hit Kaya in the booty. This Illuminati Secrets, gang. Yeah, Kaya. You know Kaya. No, not Kaya. The dude do the live. What's his name? Kai Central. Kai Sinet, what's his name? Yeah, he got hit in the booty too. So what I'm trying to say is, all of them get hit in the booty.
Oh, my black man. Don't mind if I do. I wouldn't. Shot. Yeah. That's why I said I was inspired by P. Diddy. That's what I was talking about. Why the fuck do y'all keep looking at me like that? When I say that, I'm saying that I'm inspired by the way he was talking to his people at his label. Well, I ain't say that. I ain't say that. I like the way that he was talking to the people at his label on the show, you know, like, yeah, so that's the same way we do our business. Yeah.
At the same time, we are witnessing rapid technological advances with many opportunities, and with artificial intelligence rapidly transforming our production and our lives. And breakthroughs from the fourth industrial revolution provide new opportunities for global prosperity and growth. All those factors will have a profound impact on the future of humanity, provided we are able to work together. To drive future economic growth, we must embrace innovation and foster collaboration across sectors, regions, nations, and cultures to create a more peaceful, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future. At this critical juncture, the active participation of all stakeholders is essential to ensure a sustainable development path. I'm delighted that close to 2,000 leaders from multiple sectors, representing some 80 countries and regions, have come to Dalian for this year's meeting.
I find it fascinating, and it's actually the new world, and it's also built on the platform concept. You create a platform where everybody can share goods, services, and this will be very much the future. The future will not necessarily anymore a world where people own things, but a world where people share things. Now this has quite some implications on the economy, because you have to produce less goods in order to achieve the same satisfaction. You can share the goods. We haven't, the World Economic Forum is engaged into a big program to look at the implications. For example, how does it affect robot activity increase? How does it affect the measurement of GDP? So it's a new world. It's a fascinating world, and it will be the world of the future. We will share much more what we are now used to own.
So it's a new world. It's a fascinating world, and it will be the world of the future. We will share much more what we are now used to own. We are now used to own.
Hashgraph, and it appears to be ready for deployment. Hashgraph is exponentially more efficient than blockchain. Able to handle hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, it uses practically zero energy. It is the perfect digital branding iron for human chattel in the new AI digital control grid. Hedera, the company behind the Hashgraph system, is already partnered and connected with major corporations and governments. The Institute of International Finance has tapped Hedera as the only layer 1 tech to explore blockchain solutions for tokenized financial assets. And this is how the carbon tax will be calculated.
Has there been a response to this? Like, is this something
I talked to the Biden administration, incoming administration, and they were like, well, this seems too politically difficult. And I was like, well, this is obviously a thing that should happen.
And even some sort of an incremental increase over time.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to
warn people.
Yeah, say it. Just if you just say it's coming, people will automatically make the changes.
That seems so reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
And they were like,
They thought it was like too politically difficult. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that's like at least half the reason you got elected. So why don't you just fight for that? You know, it's just one thing that will matter: put a price on carbon.
That would be the best option
for sure.
That seems like it'd be such a good idea.
Like, what do 90% of economists think? And like, they all agree. Okay, we should do that.
It was too politically difficult for Elon to introduce a carbon tax under President Biden because the MAGA cult would have resisted it. But they have become cheerleaders for the new system and all things Elon. So now the gates are wide open. Democratic Party member Maxine Waters recently introduced bipartisan stablecoin legislation. This aligns with what the Trump administration has been proposing and is expected to be passed into law without any pushback. This will create a digital dollar backed by U.S. Treasury bills and other debt instruments. But the United States has been bankrupt for decades, and a complete financial crash is imminent. Once the dollar dies, the already legally accepted stablecoins will then be pegged to Bitcoin, and the new digital system will be the savior. It will be celebrated for saving us from a depression, securing our borders, and protecting the children. And the carbon tax will begin.
Filistin'de yaşananları görüyoruz, biliyoruz ve Siyonist İsrail'i Rabbim Kahhar ismi şerifi hürmetine kahru perişan eylesin. Ve hep birlikte inşallah oradaki yaşananları görerek kendi içimizde bir olalım, iri olalım, diri olalım, kardeş olalım. Rabbim bu birliğimizi daim eylesin.
And you see, one of the problems is the Quran basically says that any lands or territories that were once under Muslim control must be retaken at all costs. That the idea of jihad involves various things, but one of them is waging war, literally war, against anybody who not only blasphemes or mocks Islam, but also who has taken over properties. That essentially what we find is a rich, powerful, successful Jewish nation in the Middle East is intolerable to those who are fundamental believers of Islam.
A rich, powerful, successful Jewish nation in the Middle East is intolerable to those who are fundamental believers of Islam.
It is to ultimately erect a one world government and to transform our liberal, open, democratic, equal societies consisting of free individuals into some kind of a collectivism where the individual is becoming merely a malleable part that can be shuttled around any which way the globalitarian misanthropists need you to be shoveled around, right? So, but it's to ultimately erect a one world government. And that is, by the way, the reason the EU even exists, right?
Right.
So looking at Europe, we're living here on this rather small continent with so many different cultures, traditions, histories, languages even. And the European peoples are proud people. They are. You would have never been able to convince them to just surrender their national state and relinquish national sovereignty to a one world government. They would have never gone along with this. But since they pulled in the EU institutions, right, it's a stepping stone. So it's like, and it's under the pretext of, we've been fighting so many wars on this continent, which is true, and we need to stop this. And the way to do it, we need to come together as Europe and as the EU institutions, right? It's just a stepping stone. So once they are relinquishing ever more competencies to the EU institutions, it's only a small step to then, okay, now we go full. We go to the one world government or whatever, right? So, but you need to condition the Europeans to be willing to do that.
Is the Illuminati real?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And can you speak on that at all?
Fuck no. I'm not in it. Shit, if I was in it, shit, I don't think this is the Atlanta that I would be in. I think I would be in the other Atlanta right now.
Just curious there.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not at all.
But is this something, just to be clear here, is this something that you've seen with your own eyes? You know it exists, or is this just...
Man, I'm gonna just say, look. The only illuminating I'm doing is when I cut on the motherfucking light in the bathroom to go take a shit or a shower. That's it. I'm good. Safe. Slid right past that one.
Your man card, no matter what.
Man, I mean, you know, one of the things you're seeing, you went to a whole different place.
Sorry.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. The women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that if I lose my integrity? You got to go in as a principal. And what we were brought in here is men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that in, no matter what.
Hey, did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. Sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers come in and make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
Say it? You've been briefed about the soldiers in Lithuania who are missing?
No, I haven't.
So they are soldiers from Lithuania. There's some others from Germany as well, but look what they have tucked into their pockets. They have little American flags just below the flag of their own countries sewn onto their sleeves. In the capital city of Lithuania yesterday, thousands of soldiers and dignitaries, and also just ordinary people, lined up in the streets to pay their respects and to honor 4 American soldiers who died in Lithuania this past week during a training exercise. The ceremony was attended by the president of Lithuania, who gave a speech on the occasion. He said that for Lithuanians, serving your country is not just a duty, but an emotion. And you could really see that among the people who gathered. Lithuanian citizens were moved to tears, moved to genuine grief. But again, this was a ceremony for Americans, for American soldiers. Officials arranged for an archbishop to bless the motorcade before it drove to the airport to start the process of returning those remains, returning those soldiers to the U.S. In our country, of course, it is a sacred tradition that when members of the armed services die in the line of duty overseas, their remains come home to the U.S. in what's called a dignified transfer. Their remains are flown home specifically to Dover Air Base with American flags draped over the coffins. It's a very somber, very important, very serious, very specific ceremony. And a dignified transfer is often attended by the President of the United States as a sign of respect from the Commander-in-Chief. After that very moving send-off from Lithuania and from the government and the people of Lithuania, the White House announced here in the United States that when those 4 young fallen American soldiers landed back home here in the U.S., President Donald Trump would not attend the dignified transfer. He would not be waiting at Dover to pay respects to the service members who died, even as Lithuania's president made sure he was there to see them off. Donald Trump has decided instead that he's going to Florida to watch a golf tournament and to go to a golf dinner tonight. You know, given his previous comments, I guess you could say this is consistent.
And the carbon tax will begin.
But it's really fundamental. Unless there's a price put on carbon,
we're never going to be able to make the transition that we need to in time, correct?
Yeah. And the only way to do that is basically with a carbon tax.
This idea that as long as we have every participant in every transaction prove their identity and we can track and control every transaction through this totalitarian surveillance system, we will end crime. And in order to believe in that false idea of safety through totalitarian control, we condemn billions of people to poverty.
We're sitting at a historical crossroads where the future of money is going to be digital. We're seeing a concerted effort around the world to ban cash, to reduce the availability, the value, and the liquidity of cash everywhere in the world. We saw India demonetize the top 2 value notes they have. Spain is passing a law to make it illegal to make any transaction more than 1,000 euros in cash. Probably the 500 euro, 100 euro notes are going to disappear eventually. You're seeing this process of demonetization, of removing cash from the economy in order to funnel it all into banking systems that are under constant control and surveillance. This is a very dangerous future.
And that's usually because they want the taxation or they want the legislation. Either they see that money used by corrupt parties or they just use that as an excuse to control it.
The biggest criminals in the world have banking licenses of their own. They don't need to money launder. They own HSBC and that money launders for them. You know, the biggest money launderers in the world are the banks, obviously, because that's where the money is. The easiest way to money launder is if you have a banking license. So, of course, the biggest money launderers have banking licenses. these are excuses. What they want to do, of course, is, they say, taxation and corruption. But in fact, this actually increases corruption. So removing cash from an economy and putting everybody under surveillance doesn't mean that criminals can't use money anymore. Of course they can. They will continue to do that. They will always have means of doing it. It just means that everybody else is under surveillance. So you end up surveilling the innocent. What does that give you? That gives you political control. We've never had in the history of humanity the ability to monitor everybody's economic activity all the time. And to give that power to governments without question is extremely dangerous. It won't reduce crime, but it will turn governments into criminals. It won't reduce corruption, but it will increase corruption at banks. And it will put people at the mercy of a system in which, at a flick of a binary switch, you can become a non-person.
And it will put people at the mercy of a system in which, at a flick of a binary switch, you can become a non-person.
All right, diving a bit more deeply, it looks like China also is going to be adding 11 American companies to its list of what they call, quote, unreliable entities, essentially barring them from doing business in China or with other Chinese companies. All the while, President Trump says more tariffs could be on the way, specifically looking at pharmaceuticals and computer chips.
And Jared, yesterday the stock market took the biggest hit since the pandemic after the announcement from China. We're seeing Dow futures drop even more as we await the market opening this morning.
Consider this. In 2023 and 2024, stocks went up roughly 20% in both years. So far in 25, we're down roughly 20%. So the bull market gains have not been entirely wiped out. Okay, but this is still white knuckle time. The economy is slowing and will probably slow further as the tariffs bite. Inflation remains at around the 3% level and may go up from there if tariffs are passed along to consumers. In other words, stagflation. It's a nasty word, but it is a possibility. Then think of profits, the baseline for stock prices. Chief financial officers are already marking down their expectations. That's never good for stocks. Consider the wealth effect. The rich take a hit when the market sells off. When you look at your diminished 401k, are you going to spend as freely as you did? If top earners cut spending, the whole economy slows. And what happens if some of our trading partners, other trading partners, join China in imposing stiff tariffs?
China will impose a 34% tariff on imports of all U.S. products starting on April 10th. Meanwhile, the Trump administration continues to promise the long-term gain will be worth it. We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio on tariffs before he left Brussels today. Watch.
I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States. We have to be a country that thinks we're the largest consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that, we have to reset the global order of trade.
The other part of my question.
Well, the worst thing is to leave it the way it is forever. I mean, this just can't continue. We can't continue to be a country that doesn't make things. We have to be able to make things to provide jobs for Americans. That's it. It's that simple. China is an example. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, they don't consume anything. All they do is export.
It's hard to see what the end game is here, Chris. There's quite frankly no rationale, no economic rationale for the way this has been put into place. It could be potentially damaging beyond what we currently consider if it goes into, as I said earlier, a full-blown trade war. But if China is going to retaliate, we could see retaliation from Japan, South Korea, possibly Taiwan, which would be unusual given that we are allies with them. And depending on what happens ultimately with Canada and Mexico, further retaliation there as well. So don't know the end game. Not quite sure what the point of this is, although the president has said several things. Number one, he would like to replace ultimately certain taxes with import taxes. He would like to raise revenue to finance tax cuts. Kind of hard to do that. It's not really compatible. This is a massive tax on the American people and certainly on American business.
The beast will rise to world leadership, and I talked at length a couple weeks ago about the United Nations and how that all fits together in my mind. But most importantly, lastly, that the temple in Jerusalem will be rebuilt. And the reason we know that is because Jesus makes reference to it, Paul makes reference to it, that in the end time there is a temple on the Temple Mount in which the beast can place his image and declare himself to be God. In fact, the term that's used for that in Daniel and in Matthew 24 is the abomination that causes things to become desolate. I believe that the Battle of Gog and Magog will be the thing that will initiate really the beginning of this one world government and one world religion, and I can't even begin to outline what the details might be. But you see, this one world religion that will come on the scene will only survive for 3.5 years, according to Revelation, because at the midpoint of the tribulation, following the completion of this temple, which I assume will cover that first 3.5 years, that the beast, it says, sets an image of himself in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Daniel 9:27 says, in the middle, that is speaking of the beast, will put up an end to sacrifice and offering in the temple in Jerusalem. And on the wings of a temple, he will set up an abomination that causes or leads to desolation. And Jesus said in Matthew 24:15, when you see the abomination, see standing in the holy place, that means the holiest of holies, the most sacred part of the temple sanctuary. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing in the holy place, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. I don't know what that place is, but I would venture to say it's not going to be something quite so obvious. But it's interesting because what happens with that 3.5 years? Well, Zechariah tells us this in Zechariah 12:10. I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication, and they will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one who mourns for an only child, and grieve bitterly for him as one grieves for a firstborn. Is this what Paul meant when he wrote in Romans 11, when the full number of the Gentiles has come in, then all Israel will be saved? So it is that God says in the end he'll save all Israel.
It's possible that 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, they built the tallest structure ever made, and that there are underground cities underneath the pyramids. I, for one, find that rather intriguing.
Archaeologists in the Judean desert have uncovered a 2,200-year-old pyramid-like structure, offering new insights into the region's ancient history, with the discovery including rare artifacts from the Hellenistic period.
In the heart of the Judean desert, near Nahal Zohar, an extraordinary archaeological discovery is unfolding. A massive pyramid-shaped structure that has baffled experts and redefined our understanding of ancient history.
The mystery of the Great Pyramids of Giza, the famous ones in Egypt, there's a theory going round, and this is based on high-tech radar technology. They've taken kind of underground pictures using radar.
For our last story today, let's talk about the pyramids. They're massive, they're mysterious, they've been standing tall for 4,500 years, and according to a new group of scientists, they might be hiding something incredible beneath them. Picture a secret underground city, lost artifacts untouched for centuries, hidden knowledge that could rewrite history, ancient secrets waiting to be uncovered. Basically, it sounds like the plot of every Indiana Jones movie, but before you start packing your bags, there's a catch. This discovery was made by a team of researchers in Italy. They claim their radar scans prove that there's a vast hidden complex below the pyramids, but not everyone believes them.
And there's a theory now that the peaks, the pyramids that we see, may have been just the pinnacles of vast structures that plunged down into the earth more than 2 kilometers. And that in fact what you're seeing there is the tip of massive structures, columns, vast chambers, underground cities, where it is thought that the pyramids planned to retreat in the event of Armageddon. So there is definite evidence that there are these huge chambers down there, 263 feet across. That's pretty damn big. These huge vertical columns that go down so far that, if it's true, they go down, they say that these columns may plunge to a depth of 2,125 feet. And that if you add that to the peak of the pyramid, the total height of that structure would be 2,835 feet, which would make it the tallest building ever constructed, taller now than the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world in Dubai, which is 2,717 feet.
To those who are fundamental believers of Islam. Now, keep in mind that only about 10% of Muslims are what we would call seriously dedicated jihadists. But many, many more do believe in the Quran in a very literal sense. And if they believe it, then they have to honor this command. It's interesting when you begin to see what were the boundaries of the Muslim empire under the Turks, in fact. It includes Spain, much of Portugal, much of countries like Bulgaria and much of the Eastern European countries. The belief is that those countries should again one day be reincorporated into the growing global caliph. And have no mistake about it, when you look at Islam, you have to understand that their objective, their theology teaches them taking over the entire world. And instead of doing it through preaching the message, which they will do, but they also believe it's done by the sword. I'm not making that up, that's their theology. Now, I have some Muslims saying, well, I don't believe that's what the Quran teaches.
So it's possible that 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, they built the tallest structure ever made.
The structure, standing at about 6 meters high, was built with hand-hewn stones, some weighing hundreds of kilograms. Dating back approximately 2,200 years, this monumental find is shedding new light on the Hellenistic period, when Ptolemaic and Seleucid rulers controlled the land. Initially thought to be a tomb, further investigation has revealed that the structure was likely a fortress or tower, possibly designed to guard a key trade route linking Edom and Gaza. It may have also played a role in collecting taxes from travelers. Alongside the pyramid, a wealth of artifacts has been uncovered. These include Greek papyrus scrolls, bronze coins from the Ptolemaic and Seleucid periods, and wooden tools, all preserved thanks to the dry climate of the desert.
היובש הקיצוני שימר פה את הדברים בצורה מדהימה. אנחנו מוצאים פרטי פפירוסים, כל מיני כלי עץ מדהימים, כל מיני סלים וחבלים שלא מוצאים בשום מקום אחר.
ממש אפשר לזהות אותיות כנראה ביוונית. מאוד מאוד מרגש למצוא משהו שבמצב שימור נפלא.
This excavation is part of an 8-year effort led by the Israel Antiquities Authority to protect and preserve antiquities in the region from looting and natural degradation. Volunteers from across Israel have been invited to participate in this groundbreaking project, contributing to the discovery of rare items and artifacts. As the excavation continues, more answers are expected to emerge. What is clear, however, is the enormous historical significance of this site. The discoveries are reshaping our understanding of the Judean desert's role in ancient times. With Passover approaching, Israelis are invited to join this journey of discovery in the Judean desert, where history comes to light.
Switch. You can become a non-person. Went to the wrong website, attended the wrong protests, associated with the wrong political party, expressed support for the wrong idea, off. You no longer exist. You can't buy food, you can't buy anything, you can't earn anything, and all of your money disappeared.
Because we don't give you a bank account. And since you can't use cash for anything, then you basically are a non-citizen.
You are a non-person. And what this will end up doing is it will end up putting the burden, again, on the most powerless in our society, right? The poor, those who don't have ID, undocumented immigrants, victims of human trafficking, refugees. These people are going to be suffering the burden to create this bourgeois illusion of safety and give massive powers to governments that certainly haven't earned the trust to have these kinds of powers. Criminals will have privacy. The question is whether the rest of us will. And so that is the thing. Criminals will use these systems. Criminals will bypass the rules. Criminals will bribe and corrupt officials. There will always be criminal activity. That's part of society. Changing the way money works only ends up punishing the innocent. And so criminals will always have privacy. Brian, do you want to also have privacy? Or do you want only criminals to have privacy and only governments to have privacy?
And so criminals will always have privacy. Brian, do you want to also have privacy? Or do you want only criminals to have privacy and only governments to have privacy?
Quit smoking. Okay, that's just dumb. No, we're not even going.
little Uzi Vert. Preferably, both those demonic. So we'll pass on that question. Next question. Did Diddy take you shopping? Next question. Okay, commercial. Commercial break. Yeah.
Did Diddy take you shopping? Did Diddy take you shopping?
To get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing. And I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that shit. Because the man card means everything.
I had no idea we're going to go this direction with the podcast. This is absolute. But listen, we've talked about it. We've had a lot of the guys on to talk about this stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because
no,
of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents.
For this reason, apart from looking at how we engage all those new technologies in the health sector, we are also involved still in very traditional ways like the digital health transformation, Global Alliance on Women's Health, Climate and Health Initiative, Global Health Equity Network, and Partnership for Health System Sustainability and Resilience. All those areas require the engagement of business and the support and endorsement of the political instances. That's what the World Economic Forum stands for. So I just wanted to express my appreciation and my pride, if I may say so, for what has been achieved. But I think the obstacles, or not the challenges, are coming now. And Peter, I wish that you are very successful in preparing the next phase of the Global Fund. So again, thank you.
I wish that you are very successful in preparing the next phase of the Global Fund.